Let's hear about this dating service.
Not a dating service.
How do you have any time?
That's what I was thinking too. You are like the world's busiest person. You have you always chronically have 9 million irons and 9 million different fires, and you're taking it upon yourself to start a dating service?
Okay, so here's the thing. This to me doesn't seem like that heavy of a lift. So it has been in the back of my mind for a little while that, I am now approaching almost 5,000 Facebook friends. And it wasn't until actually Dave and I did Nelp that I realized I'm a connector, right? Like when I meet people, I like to connect them to other people. Usually, this week is Thanksgiving, I would probably have 40 to 50 people over at my house. And I just, I like to see the cross-pollination of people who get to know one another. So over time, I've always had friends who have said, oh, if you know anybody, hook me up. And I'll think about it for the moment and then I just kind of let it go. And then I started having conversations and people were like, really, it'd be nice. I'm sure you know some nice people and I'd like to meet them. And I was like, well, what if I didn't have to actually do it one-on-one? And so that was in the back of my mind. And then we were having another conversation. And I think some of you were even there. And we were talking about, just how challenging it can be sometimes to date and how, you're trying to match your expectations with their expectations. And so I was like, well, what if we just put your expectations out there and they're not connected with returned expectations. And so I was like, let's see how people feel about this. And a lot of people were into it. So I had 2 people who'd reached out to me and kind of given me their wanted list. And so the way it works is you message me your wanted list, I post it up. And then if somebody sees it while they're scrolling through their newsfeed and is like, hey, that sounds like me, they shoot me a message and then I say, okay, well, here, let me connect you with the person who it was. And you all see do you like each other? Do you not? Do you want to do a Zoom date or not? Whatever. And it goes or doesn't go, but it's super chill for me. It's just I post your thing and then I check my messages and then I message you. It's a 3-step process and doesn't seem that hard.
Well, for now, but what if it takes off?
Well,
it's deal with that when it gets it. So here's the thing. This weekend, I was sitting out back and I picked up my phone and opened up Facebook and it was notification from Flo. Flo has tagged you in a post. And I was like, what is Flo tagging me in? So I opened it up and I was like, set up Sunday. What is this? And Nate looked he was like, what? And I'm like, nothing. So then I read through it. I read through it real quick and out loud. So I was in this moment where I said what I was thinking out loud. And I was like, is this humping set up or is this having coffee set up? And Nate was like, did you tell Flo you wanted to date? And I was like, no, I didn't tell Flo I wanted to date. and then the following thing he was like, let me see that. So he took the phone and looked at it. And then he was like, how does she have time to do that?
See?
So
all 3 of us.
First of all, okay, we can all agree we don't understand how you have time to do this, even though you're saying that the investment on your part is minimal.
Oh, yeah,
but also, is it humping dating or is it?
Great question. So about a week ago, I posted something and I was like, hey, people who can ethically mingle, what do you think about this? Because I was really trying to get away from just the idea of it being single people, because I have a lot of friends who are poly and who are like, we can ethically mingle, right? But we're not single. So that question came up even in the comments.
This is kind of like how you opened up Shannon and Nate's relationship. Right?
Just this Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I tagged the people who commented on that post in here. And I thought, Shannon, you were on when we were having this conversation, but I'm thinking back and you might have still been not recording that show. But I tagged Dave
I'm glad.
Tyler because we were all part of the conversation that kind of got me to that next step of, should I post this or not? And so that was why I tagged you. So there are people who were tagged who are not able to ethically mingle. I tagged Tareen, and Tareen and I are not in an open relationship It was more so that whoever commented.
Was he pretty confused when he saw that?
No, not at all. Like I wanted also to show up to other people, because the whole goal is like, if it looks like you, obviously message me. But if you see it and you're like, wow, that description sounds a lot like my friend John, send it to them. Or that sounds like Stacy, I should send it to, like, I want people to like kind of see them and also be thinking about who they might know as well, because it's a really specific like ask. They're like, hey, I'm looking for somebody in this age range who lives here, who's into this, who, you know, whatever. So yeah.
So here on Voices River City, not only do we bring you the news for California, Sacramento, and even the nation, but we also connect you with local matchmaker Flojean.
Yeah. Flo will pimp out your spouse.
I love it.
That's how it came up. I mean,
think about it.
I'm hoping that some cool people will get to know each other, and that some of you will also, because of the tags, like your friends will see it and be like, hey, that's me, you know? So
I was wondering why you tagged me, because I'm like, I think she knows I'm not really trying to date right now.
Yeah, no, I just think the people who were like in the conversation, and then everybody who commented. So again, some of the people who commented were like, wow, this just sounds like a good idea. So it's more so just like giving them the update, like, hey, it's out there and I'm doing this thing. Mm-hmm. I won't tag everybody every time I post.
It's a fun read anyway, even like the comments on it.
I like that. I like the read. The other thing about it is when you see like Kempa and Skylar, and like, I'm gonna leave other names off because I don't know if they're consenting to having their names named right now, but you're like, oh, okay, well, go on then. Like, this is how you want to do it. Like, I was just
see, that's what other people are thinking. They're getting the wrong idea with me tagged on here now.
Yeah, there didn't mean anything. The tags did not mean anything. The tags were simply a way for people to be able to kind of put it out there. Yeah, so Trina and I are not, you know, trolling for extra. Really was just to be able to let people like know that this was out there. I love the descriptions though, like may have been seen in a tea, a grill, and like Tim's. Some Tim's in the 90s. Like I loved it.
Yeah, it's great.
I also loved like would love to go to like have beer at a Steelers bar, but wouldn't right now because COVID is spiking. Like, love it, right?
I was already making guesses on who they were too.
But it's like a super niche-y kind of way to like say what you're looking for without the usual like constraints, right? I mean, with the exception of like, you know, gender identity and age, people really weren't that specific about like physically what they were looking for. So it was kind of cool to be able to think more about personality and like what you think kind of vibes with you. And so I'm hoping they'll, you know, keep going that way.
Well, we expect regular updates on this, but it's probably time that we get started on the show.
Yeah, we need to have like the first person who actually like has a connection via this thing needs to come on the show and tell us about their experience.
Oh, 100%.
Like 80s music background and
yes.
But yeah, Dave, I think you've got the right idea. Let's start this show for now.
Let's do it.
Voices, the things they said. Voices, some from those dead. All the voices heard. Voices, things we say. Voices, they're in your head. All the voices heard.
Hello, everyone. You have Kempa.
And Skylar.
And Shannon.
And Flo.
And it's a nice, warm, pre-Thanksgiving family affair. So glad to have all four of us here today.
Same.
And and you know, hoping not too many of you are traveling too much because this is quite the time to be traveling.
This would have been my first Voices night off. I'm supposed to be on a plane actually right now, headed up to Seattle.
I'm so sorry.
You know, the way that I'm thinking about it is it's one holiday season. I've had quite a few, upwards of 30 of them. I can skip one while coronavirus is happening. It's all right.
Yeah. With many more to come, you know, keeping your family safe.
Right.
There's just so many good things on the horizon. I just really hope people continue to make smart decisions, because there is a light at the end of this tunnel with these vaccines, with promising new research that, you know, antibodies might actually last a whole lot longer than they originally feared. Like, there is a way out of this damn thing. And for a long time, I didn't think there was. I wasn't really dreaming toward a future, literally in dreams, up until a week or two ago.
I mean, the other side of that, though, right, is that it will get better. Like, obviously, like the thing with the antibodies and the vaccines is like all good, promising news. But before it gets better, we are about to see some craziness post Thanksgiving. And then right after that, we're rolling into Christmas.
And what a horrible thing.
This is a really good time to be cool about this shit, because it's going to get nasty, and you don't have to be one of the people it gets nasty with, you know?
You don't want to be somebody who got Mima or Peepaw sick over Thanksgiving and suddenly there's a pre-Christmas funeral, right? Like, that's
right.
Oh, yikes. Yeah.
And I have to just point this out because it was in the LA Times. They went over this like case of this couple from California that went to Maine for their wedding. And they only had 55 guests, which for most weddings is pretty small. I mean, that's like 25 people each, right? And they were kind of lax about the masks when they had their indoor reception. And 176 people ended up getting COVID because somebody at the wedding was positive, and 7 people died. And the thing that I point out to everybody is that of those 7 people who died, not a single one of them was actually at the wedding. So that's the impact, is that it may not be you and your friends who got together for your Friendsgiving, or you and your family who got together. But when you all go back and are living your lives, it can be the other people. One of those people at the wedding like worked in a jail, and so took COVID to this population that's incredibly vulnerable. Another person there went and visited somebody in a senior's, home, and took COVID to a very vulnerable population. So, and especially because we're learning more about the people who they're calling long haulers, which are people who had COVID, don't die, but have long-term symptoms, consequences of it. We just need to be really careful, because we still haven't known about this for a year, and there can be lots of things that could be coming down the pipeline for us that we're not even aware of yet, because it hasn't been around long enough.
Absolutely. So you heard it from the resident epidemiologist folks. Take care of each other by staying the hell away from each other. Let's get it started. We have a lot to cover today. And I'm very, very I think these are all very important topics. Some of them happier than others. First, I'd like to begin with some things that have been going on here in downtown Sacramento, just outside the west steps of the Capitol, ever since the day that Joe Biden was called as president-elect of the country. 3 Saturdays running now, we have had an influx of QAnoners, of open up folks, open up the state Gavin folks, of Trump truthers, and of Proud Boys. Skylar, can you give a little background on that and what happened this past Saturday?
Yeah, well, I mean, ever since, like Dave said, ever since Biden won, we get these big right-wing things at the Capitol every Saturday now. There's one coming this Saturday. They do get violent. The cops are not willing to do anything about it, except for watch right-wingers mace and assault people who are either there to counter protest, or there was a woman this last weekend who turned out to be like a conservative vlogger or something, who just like had a camera, and so they chased her out. I do believe they actually did like beat up another woman, if I saw that video correctly, that came out of that, like a gang of like 3 dudes. So that's great.
Yeah, there's actually a photo from the Bee. Who was it at the Bee that did this? It was Jason Pierce, showing these multiple men punching this woman in Cesar Chavez Plaza. This is what the Proud Boys are here to do. It's what they're about. They were harassing legal observers with the green hats, those folks who are just there to observe and really be passive third-party folks. They, like you said, were attacking members of media. They actually, that conservative vlogger was definitely Black Zebra. I went to their page and I watched the footage, and there's actually footage of her lying to Scott from Capitol Radio.
Yeah. Well, she got me too. I believed her.
I mean, if I were in her position, I might be saying the same thing. So do not blame her. And those Black Zebra folks really, really put themselves on the line.
Yeah, they definitely
totally
do. Yeah.
So
yeah,
not
it's just like
that.
I don't know. It's just like it's irritating to watch this shit go on. And we knew, like, obviously this is like the first instance of the thing where it's like the election, like Trumpism is not going away, right? Like Biden's going to get inaugurated in January, but like this thing is not going away. These guys are here to stay. I mean, hopefully, I think the optimistic take on this is that these gatherings now are like sort of the death, like the beginning of the end for these groups once they don't have a president who's going to like signal to them from the debate stage. You know, I think it will be harder for them to keep their morale quite as high as it has been. But in the meantime, these guys are here to fuck people up, and they're doing it. And they're doing it basically with the blessing of law enforcement.
Yep.
So I don't know. Like they're definitely coming in next Saturday. It should be more of the same thing. They're coming in bigger numbers. These things used to be so pathetic and small. It used to be like 25 people stumbling around in front of the Capitol with like 300 counter protesters across the street. That is not that's not the vibe anymore.
No,
not at all.
So, I mean, there are like, there's a number of people who are doing really good work and like fucking being brave as shit and showing up and counter protesting these guys, which ultimately that is hugely necessary. Like these guys need to feel these guys need to feel unwelcome in downtown
physical
Sacramento.
Resistance to
exactly
that.
These guys like need to feel like they're in danger if they walk around the streets of downtown Sacramento in these Fred Perry fucking polos, in fascist costumes or whatever. But they're coming out in huge numbers, and it is like it's extremely dangerous to go out and counter protest these things. Not to say that you shouldn't do it, just if you're gonna like, depending on how if you want to get involved in that, then do it. But like squad up, wear black. Do not be there by yourself. Have your escape route picked out. Don't have anything on you that the fucking cops are going to roll you up on. Because I mean, the thing to think about if you're thinking about going out and doing this is that the cops will let these guys stab you. Like they will let these guys stab you and they won't do shit about it, but they will fucking get in your face.
And they won't let you do anything to them.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. So like keep that in mind. The cops are part of it. So that is an aspect of this. That
the police
cannot be
always protect them.
Yes.
And that's actually something that like we have been talking about just in terms of even, when the police are deployed for these things, the police will always protect the white supremacists against anybody who is there with a different message.
I mean, they made a fucking barricade. Like they made a police barricade
and like let the Proud Boys walk people out that they didn't want in there, and then closed it behind them. They're the front line for the Proud Boys, right? Which I mean, like it doesn't even really need to be said, right? But I mean, if that's a far cry from protests that I was at this summer that were peaceful, meaning that nobody was doing certainly nobody was macing anybody. No one was stabbing anybody. No one was beating anybody up. But the cops felt like they needed to launch a bunch of tear gas and fucking quote unquote, non-lethal projectiles into those crowds and turn those into riots. And I do not say that lightly. I witnessed them do that firsthand multiple times, as did a lot of Sacramentans. Over the course of the George Floyd protests, the cops are not doing that this time, which should surprise absolutely fucking nobody. But it is still extremely infuriating and frustrating.
The cops are still crying over their boy losing the election,
right?
They, to reiterate what Skylar said, because I think it's really important. If you're going out there, know the risk that a lot of folks who've gone out to present a physical pushback to these Proud Boys the last couple of weeks, they've come up against bear mace, they've come up against just them being punched effectively. There's footage of one Proud Boy who he has a very large, I don't know if you saw this footage, he had a very large cast on his left hand, from like the forearm to the end of the hand. It's black, and he
He's
was
using
wearing
it like a club.
Yeah, and he used it on this young woman with black zebra, and he clubbed her with it. So keep an eye out for that guy, right? And these multiple people doing this thing. But if you see a guy with a black cast on his left hand, that's the guy. So just remember that.
I want to say one more thing before we move on. It is not like this, like we've said, this is like showing out and doing like physical opposition to this is dangerous. And it is not like not wanting to engage in that is not cowardice or like anything to be ashamed of. If you feel like you can do that and are in a position where you can, then awesome, and more power to you. And like, I love and support you. If you can't, or you don't want to, or whatever, there's still things you can do. Number one being, go to NorCal Resist website. You can donate. Like, these are the folks, we've had them on the show before, but these are the folks who will bail out activists or people who get rolled up by the cops at protests. And your contributions to those bail funds are extremely needed and extremely important, and are something that you can do from behind your computer screen that actually has real world impact that makes a difference in the situation. So
yeah. And if you do go, there is a rising swell of people who are talking about going this week that have not been out there really yet in as big of numbers. Just know who they are, where they are, and make sure you know how to connect yourself with them beforehand. And also just protection. Something to cover your eyes. These cops will shoot you in the eye with a rubber bullet if they get the chance. And a mask, all of those other things. Just make sure you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yep.
Let's move on to something that, Shannon, you spoke with us at length last week on the housing crisis and the homelessness crisis and how things were going in that regard here within our region. Last week, advocates such as our friend Bob Erlenbush of the SAC Region Coalition and Homelessness and others started ringing the bell on the fact that we need to start opening warming shelters and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about that and then sort of what has ensued since?
Yeah, it's not uncommon for advocates to start pushing for the city and the county to start making plans around winter shelter, warming centers, things like that, as early as, late September, early October, because we understand that historically, they're not thinking about it until it's like the week before Thanksgiving, right? So yeah, advocates really started to make that push last week. And especially in such a time as this, where people experiencing homelessness have really been just further sort of pushed into spaces where they just got to figure it out for themselves. Like our city and county just aren't doing enough for them. And as a reminder, the Sacramento sheriffs took $104 million of CARES money that could have been used to develop more resources for people who are experiencing homelessness and incredibly vulnerable through the pandemic and especially this winter. So yeah, those cries for warming centers, even winter shelter come up. And on the 20th, which was Friday, was that last Friday?
Yep.
The first casualty that we know of winter happened. A man was found around 7 a.m. On Ahern between North B and North C streets, adjacent to the Loaves Fishes campus. While we don't know the official time or cause of death, the temperatures that night were low. It was 37-ish degrees. It had rained a few nights before. He was wearing seasonally inappropriate clothing. So what I mean is, like, he was wearing a t-shirt He only had one shoe on. He was wearing jeans and was pretty soaked through from the night's dew. And it's a harsh and unfortunate reality that we lose people to extreme weather here in Sacramento and in communities throughout the world, certainly. And we just, the city and the county just continue to not do enough for them. And really what advocates are asking for is something so small. Right now, we're asking for warming centers, which is really just respite for people. We're
It's
just
sort of
saying
the bare minimum ask. Yeah.
Right.
it's like we just need to give people a space to warm up during the coldest parts of the night. And as the days go on, the nights are getting colder and the nights are getting longer. And for people to just be out with absolutely no alternative, like the winter shelters that have existed in seasons past do not exist this winter. When people show up where I work, for example, and ask where they can go, we have to tell them we don't have anywhere for them to go.
Yeah. Right.
So, and that's, that morning, I was just like working on some stuff, and a coworker came in and was like, "Did you hear the news?" And I was like, "What news?" And he's like, "It's really terrible, but you have to hear it and sit with it." And I was like, "Well, shit, what is it?" And I didn't expect that it was going to be that a man's body was found just around the corner from Loaves and Fishes. And, really, unfortunately, it happens so often. And I've been doing this work for so long that it's not surprising anymore. It's worth the pause, and it is worth like the moment to grieve that person's loss and to get fucking angry that that person had to go the way that they did. But it's like that part of me was that like silently was just like, of course this happened. Like,
Yeah.
what the fuck else do you expect? Like, what alternative is there? Of course people are dying in the cold,
Right.
alone outside. Of course they are.
Yeah. When I read the press release, I saw the interim executive director make a quote, who's a friend of ours, so that's very weird to see her name there. But she had a quote just saying that, unfortunately, this is something that you all and the community over there have to deal with on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I've covered the Day of Remembrance that you do down there at Loaves every December. And I don't know how people can handle that sort of trauma over and over
Same.
and over again.
Same.
And I don't know if I have anything to say beyond that. It's just devastating over and over and over again. And I don't know how people can keep working so hard the way you do. So I don't know. I'm just really thankful for people like you.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah,
your work is so needed.
I had the opportunity to visit the campus this last week on a job that I was doing. And I had never been to Friendship Park before and got to see that memorial wall that they have set up there. And I just want to echo what Dave said. Like I think I was also there the day that they found this person in the morning, and that added to the effect of being in the presence of that memorial wall and sitting with all of those names was. I don't know. I don't have words for it, but I guess I just want to echo what Dave and Flo are saying, and like the work that you and your coworkers do, Shannon, is like superhuman. I already had a lot of respect for you and the work that you do, but like, yeah. I don't know. I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
And you said something, Shannon, that I just wanted to like draw everybody, all of our listeners back to. And you talked about, you know, the decisions that have been made about when we're going to take care of people, right? And, you know, we can talk about them for, you know, when are we going to open up the cooling centers? When are we going to open up the warming centers? We can talk about them, but more broadly about like, are we going to help people have housing? Like, this is not a matter of not being able to, it's a matter of political will, right? And so
100%.
you know, when people are dying, it's really easy to kind of get tunnel vision to say what a tragedy that particular one thing was and not look at all of the ways that we failed people. And I think, you know, just always at any time when that happens, want to just draw our attention back to like, these are systemic failures. And everybody has an individual story and there are individual actors in it, but these are system-wide problems. And so they need system-wide solutions. And that's something that, you know, when it seems as if, you know, it's almost trivialized when we start talking about budgets as in, well, you know, the police union doesn't want this or the fire union wants that. And it's just like people's lives are at stake.
Meanwhile, people are just dying in the streets.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I mean this, you know, I'm you know, a pro-labor person, but I'm like, fuck a union. Like, these are real lives. Like, I need you to quantify for a moment, like, what it means to invest $1 here instead of there, like not because of political reasoning, but because this matters. And so I can't say that enough. And I just really wanted to highlight that because you were drawing attention to like the CARES Act dollars. Part of what was denied was $15 million to be able to house people who were the most, you know, vulnerable. That could have taken, as I'm reading through some of these stories, like that could have taken some of our older people off the street right now and made it so that they weren't in the population that we were trying to find housing for.
To this exact point, there's a line in this CapRadio article about people, about activists and unhoused folks asking for warming centers. Where it says a city spokesperson said it costs $1,900 to operate a warming center for 12 hours, which to like quick mental math is just under $60,000 a month. You would think we would need one of these centers to be open for let's say 3 months. Yeah. So we're up to $180,000 per center, which sounds expensive until you start hearing about the numbers that Flo just threw out, where like $180,000 is nothing. Like the amount of money that we throw at law enforcement and fucking other things, like we could have several of these centers open and not even miss the money. You know, it like it is an insult to have this guy say, "Oh, this costs," and it's to be fair, and it's not in the context of like this is expensive, but like $1,900 for a night to operate these things is nothing in the face of how our budget gets fucking spent in this city, and the fact that people continue to freeze to death on the streets in spite of it is fucking criminal.
And it's nothing compared to what we pay out in police misconduct, for example. Right. Like the things that we didn't even budget for that we just have to pay for because you are doing your job in an abusive way. And what we need to be able to care for people's basic human rights is a fraction of what we pay because you didn't know how to comport yourself in a way that was reasonable or professional.
Yeah. And I think this is, well, I guess I want to start by saying that I receive all of the comments earlier about the superhero nature of the work that is done over on the campus of Loaves and Fishes, and I will not argue with you that is true. And I want to highlight, you know, not just, I really want to push that further into my community of colleagues and the community of volunteers that come and help us do that work. That is there, those are, we can do what we do because there is a whole community of us working really, really hard, and we're a bunch of feisty, salty, badass people who refuse to fucking give up, because every time another person dies on the streets of Sacramento, we get even more angry, and more gritty, and it really lights the fire under our feet to keep pissing people off.
The spirit of Dan and Chris Delaney, the founders of Loaves.
We are 100% animated by the mission that they dreamt up, and they had all of the dams they had to give were for the people that they served, and that's exactly where we find ourselves.
So how can listeners channel yourself,
Yeah.
Dan and Chris, and get the city and the county moving?
So there's a few ways. I think it's important, one, to write and call your folks, your elected representatives at the city and the county level, and let them know that there are people dying on the streets of Sacramento this winter, and they need to fucking do more, and they need to do better, and they need to move swiftly in the direction of compassion, to recognize the humanity of the people who are suffering on our streets.
And something tangible would be open a warming center.
Open the
winter shelter. Yeah.
Warming center, winter shelter, and creating year-round respite programs, right?
Yes.
Like immediate action is warming center, winter shelter, but we really want year-round respite for people experiencing homelessness. The other thing is to really use your social media fingerprint to alert the people that you know, or the people that are connected to you, that this is happening in your community. Because some people just don't know, right? Like if you're a listener, I would suspect that you have people in your circle of influence that have no idea that this is happening. And then the third thing is the Office of Emergency Services in Sacramento is the body that controls whether or not warming centers open up on any given night. And there is incredibly vague language around when those warming centers can open. And so another call to action, like a direct actionable, is asking the county to change the language in the manual so that there is explicit instruction that actually fits the weather patterns that we find here in Sacramento, not the vague weather patterns that are found in Animal Crossing version of Sacramento.
Isn't there some kind of numbers you have to be 3 nights below freezing or something before they'll
it's
turn
the same
on?
thing with the heating. It's the same thing with the heat. Exactly. It's it has to be 3 days over 105 or something.
Yeah.
It's really high. And it can't drop. It can't drop below I think 70 at night or something.
Yeah, so those are three. I think those are 3 ways, and the best thing would be to do all 3. But if you only have room for one or the other, I would say send some emails over to your electeds and
fire half a cop, and we could have cooling centers all summer.
Totally.
Moving on,
or just have them not abuse somebody this year, and we could have cooling
right.
centers.
Exactly, we'll have millions available for it.
Because we paid out $10 million. What was it? In 8 months or 9 months in bad conduct payments. So just we could have lots of nice things.
Yep. All right. I got to move on, guys. So some stuff happened in this last week, right? Chickens coming home to roost for a few political figures, some accountability. Let's start with Alice Huffman on the state level. Flo, tell us about her and what happened.
Sure. So we talked about this in a previous episode, but Alice Huffman is, or what is until December 1st, the president and CEO of the California NAACP. And she has had that position, I believe, since 1999. So it's been 21 years now. And she will be resigning as of December 1st. She's citing health issues. But the true issue is that, there were serious questions that have been, have been raised about her for years. I mean, like when I lived here for the first time in 2006, questions were raised about the role she was playing in getting money. She owns a lobbying firm, and she would get money to be able to support things. And surprisingly, the NAACP would take the same position as, the people who were paying her to run their campaign. And some of these things didn't make sense in terms of positions that the NAACP would be taking, like against, rent control, when Black women are the population most overburdened by housing in the state, for example.
Yes.
So some of these just didn't make sense. And similarly, this happened this year, and I think it just kind of came to a head in the way that lots of things are coming to a head in 2020. Things that people have been complaining about and trying to shed a light on, but people I think are at home stressed out and sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so, a lot of Black women organized behind the scenes to be able to help oust her, especially Black women in the Sacramento area. And so, major shout out to, the organizations and the people who are working on that and who are raising the issue and saying this has to stop.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny too, because you talk to a lot of old school California politicos about this, and they're like, "Oh, we've known about this for years. People have written about this, blah blah blah."
True.
But it's this year. This is the year that it finally came back to bite her in the ass. And she's taken over 20 years about $4 million from these special interest groups that are really harmful to a lot of people. And she used the NAACP name to support them.
Which is super cynical, because there's a lot of people who look to the NAACP. Like, I can say, like, I know a fair amount of of well-off white liberal people who are like, oh, cool, the NAACP supports this. I'm behind it because I want to be behind causes that help Black folks.
Yep.
And so that just makes what she's doing here all the more cynical, right?
Yeah, it does.
I mean, shitty.
She probably is the reason why some things, within the margin of error, why some things ended up passing or failing during her time. And it was actually surprising to me that it was only $4 million, because her contracts in the last few elections have been quite high. So I don't know if they're just counting the ones that they thought were like problematic, where it was like, well, the NAACP would have taken this position that seems reasonable, so we won't count those dollars that she took, because she took $2 million in this one, and I know she took at least $800,000 for one campaign in 2018, was it? And she took some money for some other things that were on the ballot. So when I saw the total of $4 million in the Cal Matters article, I was like, is that it? That feels like a serious underestimation of just how much money she's received over the 20 years, given that
maybe they were a
back.
little conservative. Yeah, they only said 1.7 million for this year. It's should I want to be angry at someone and not just at her.
Mm-hmm.
Can we blame Gen X for this a little bit? Like, why weren't they angrier about this?
We can blame capitalism.
Well, we can definitely blame capitalism.
We can blame, we can blame a lot of folks. I mean, there's a lot of people who were complicit in this, or who were, actively participating in not ousting this. And I think some of that comes down to, what a lot of people have is this race loyalty of, I don't want to speak out publicly against somebody because this is how racism works. If I'm aligned the character of one Black person, that reflects negatively on all of us. So I'm not going to say anything. And I think that's harmful. And I think, I think there is a generational move. I think it's also the benefit of there being wins. So I want to give Gen X and previous generations also credit for you lay the foundation so that the next generation can push harder for better things. Right. I think it's both. Right. I think there's a little bit of abdication of you may not say it publicly, but can you call somebody in privately? Where's the intervention that should have happened? Where's the private ousting that should have happened. Why couldn't she have resigned for her health 15 years ago, right?
Right.
She's 84 years old. It's not as if that wouldn't be unreasonable, right? So, I mean, I think there are a lot of people that we can place blame on, but I also do want to say that some of the ways that people shoulder things in past generations do give us the ability to be more intolerant, right? And rightly intolerant. I mean, this is a good kind of intolerance in the time we're living in now.
I said I wanted to find someone to be mad at, and you're taking it away from me, but
rude.
But
capitalism is who you get to be mad at. Like our devotion to capitalism, that is what that does not
the
get
faceless, nameless specter. Okay, fine, of capitalism.
I think another question that gets raised here, right, is when is her going away Zoom party, and who will the musical guests in attendance be?
Yeah.
Great question.
That's hilarious. Yes. You get a going away party no matter what, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So I
locally.
Say no more.
We'll see if they do the goodbye tour for Alice Huffman. But I am certainly saying, good riddance to her in that position. Like it's about time is all I have to say.
And you look at what she took in this year, she'll be fine. She'll have a great retirement.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a more local level, to the county. I know our friends sometimes claim that we don't talk about the county too much.
The county's been fucking up, though. I feel like all I hear about now is the county.
I feel like all we talk about is the county. So I don't know what these older folks are saying when they claim we're not. So can you talk, Flo, about, are there any updates with our friend Sacramento County CEO Nav Gill, who gave $104 million of COVID money to the sheriff's department, and who held a meeting in which many people in this in-person meeting were not wearing masks or distancing properly, and who got a letter that said what? Sorry, I got on a tangent.
So animated. I love.
Are we talking about that particular meeting, or are we talking about in general right now?
Well, let's talk about the letter.
Yeah. So the letter was submitted to, or a letter was submitted to the County Board of Supervisors, essentially detailing, people who worked for the county, in particular women who worked for the county, who have experienced sexism, have experienced racism, were being, teased and bullied for trying to abide by the health order. And there was just in general, a hostile work environment and a culture of intimidation. And among those people signed on to that letter include our county health officer, a Black woman named Dr. Olivia Casirier. And so, and many other people, and people are still coming forward. I mean, we even had during public comment at the meeting last Tuesday, another person came forward and shared her story of leaving the county after 20 years. And it, the look of shock on people's faces seemed as if that was a name that was known to everybody, and that they were like, wow, not you too. So, I have immense, respect for these folks for organizing and coming out together and saying, we've had enough. Like, you thought the CARES Act money was bad. You should see all the stuff that was happening behind closed doors that led to that. And part of the reason why he was able to get away with lying on the record and saying everybody who asked for it got it, when, Dave broke the story of, no, that's not true. The Public Record Act request, was able to verify that they actually did turn people down for money, even though he lied to the county supervisors' faces. And so, that vote of no confidence that had been taken, or the letter of no confidence that had been sent by Patrick Kennedy and by Phil Cerna. Now, the day after their meeting, they had a closed session. And what happened at that closed session was that they voted 3-2. So Don Natoli joined Patrick Kennedy and Phil Cerna to—
Don, baby, we need more of this out of you, Don.
Thank you.
Love
Yes.
it, Don.
2 years of this
we
out
don't
of
have,
you,
we don't have
Don.
confidence in you now.
We're watching you, buddy.
Lie on the record. You're putting people at public health harm, and now very credible people are coming out together and sharing the same set of testimony around what has been happening in the county. Unfortunately, Sue Frost and Sue Peters did not join on to that, but they did vote unanimously 5-0 to put him on paid administrative leave. So he has since Wednesday not been working and is not going to be able to work. And also an investigation is launched into all of the allegations.
He's on paid leave, if I'm not mistaken.
He's on paid leave.
And
he's getting that like
$400,000 a year.
Something along those
3 to
lines.
4, I think. Yeah.
How many warming centers could that money support for a whole winter? Multiple,
Absolutely.
I think.
That could save a few lives, but let's just keep paying Nav's bills.
Yeah, this might be like a dumb guy question, but like, do we need a county CEO? Like, is that like a necessary fucking position?
We currently don't have an interim filling the role, so it seems like at the moment, no. But yeah, I mean, what they needed was a fourth person for the supermajority of the no confidence vote. And neither of the Darth Susans were going to do that. They're evil Republicans. And so yeah, we're stuck with basically giving him administrative leave. You know what, though? He's out the door right now. People can actually do their jobs, and you don't have to worry about the fucking culture and like the sludge that he built up over and over in that place. So I think in some ways that's a win. I agree. That's a total waste of money.
Yeah.
That's a plus.
And I think the other thing that's really challenging about this is that, the only reason why we needed a fourth vote is because of Patrick Kennedy. Patrick Kennedy decided to join the Sioux a few years ago and to give Nav Gill a contract that has no expiration date. And when you do that,
join the Sioux.
Right. And when you do that, it means that it takes 4 votes to oust you instead of 3. If his contract, like most people's contracts, had an expiration date, it would have only have taken 3 of them to be able to get rid of him. And so I think Patrick now sees the error of his ways, and hopefully we won't do that again in the future, because it's a silly thing to do. Because it's very rare that, that we decide to oust people. It takes a high bar. People aren't just, getting rid of county executives willy-nilly.
It's also like, I don't know, it's an especially big bummer that Fishman lost, because we kind of had a chance at getting our fourth guy reliably. Now we're getting Rich Desmond, the fucking pig, instead. So, and he's more than likely to vote along the Sioux lines.
We don't know that, though. From what I'm hearing about, and I don't know Rich Desmond at all, so I'm not here to be his, lackey or to cape for him. But
I don't know, Flo. It sounds like you love cops.
It's sounding a little bit
no. But what I have been told is that we should expect that Rich will be open to hearing, all the things that have happened, into making a judgment about whether or not Nav's to be trusted. Because I think the thing that surprises me about the Sioux not being willing to vote for this is that Nav lied to them too. Like, they're taking a lot of heat for what did and did not happen with that CARES Act money from the business community, from people who live in the county who are concerned about, housing and public. I mean, they took a lot of heat from people who are usually on their side about that. And I would think, from a respect factor, that you would be annoyed that the person that works for you lied to your face and did it with I would never, like, it wasn't like oops, I misrepresented the data. It was like everybody who asked for money got it. And then you get, information to show that's a bold-faced lie. Like, that's a crisis that usually, if you weren't being partisan, wouldn't matter who did it. It would be like, that's your job. So,
but that's the bottom line, right?
Right.
Is that it's 100% partisan, and these guys do like the MAGA form of governments, where they're like, what is the righteous and just way to go about this? And then they do the opposite, regardless of like how evil or terrible or stupid it is, right?
I also think that probably both the Sioux, maybe not both, but like, I guess Sue Frost is just kind of like, whatever, I love cops and I'm racist. But the other Sioux might have sat with him and been like, oh, how do we pay this sheriff's department overtime, and worked with Nav on this,
Certainly. And I think the challenge though becomes like when your constituents are people who are like, okay, yeah, I don't believe in COVID, but if you're gonna shut my business down, I need to make some money back. Like that's where I'm like, you pissed off a bunch of supposedly your constituents when you didn't offer any small business support with that money. Like it would have made more sense to me if the strategy was give some to the cops and give the rest to the small businesses so that our entire base is covered, and screw the people with the housing and screw the public health stuff because we don't care about them, but we're going to take care of our folks. But to screw over their folks felt like an unforced error.
Flo, I mentioned Sue Frost and racism. Can we talk a little about what she's been up to?
A fantastic segue there, Dave. That was watertight.
I learned from the best, Skylar.
Yeah, seriously, that was a good one. Yeah. So Sacramento County joined 20 other places in 20 other states, as well as something like, I think, 10 or 15 other counties in California, and about, 5 other counties and about 10 or 15 other cities in California to declare racism a public health crisis. And unfortunately, this was not a unanimous vote. It was 4-1. And
wild.
Who would vote
Peters
for racism?
Joined the team and said, racism is a public health issue, but Sue Frost had to dissent. And in her righteous dissent, she said that she just doesn't believe America is racist. She doesn't believe this county is racist. And she doesn't believe people who work for the county are racist. And so she just can't stand for this. And also, why are we, passing this resolution when we haven't passed one on homelessness? And we haven't passed one on serious mental health. And we haven't passed one about the LGBT community. And we haven't passed one, about public safety. So how can we address this issue when we haven't addressed all of these other major priorities that Sue Frost has on her docket?
Because Sue Frost will definitely sign up. She will write.
Yeah, she's the champion of those. She's well known for championing those causes.
Mm-hmm. Mental health in particular. Like she definitely wasn't sitting on millions of dollars of state funding and forcing Darryl Steinberg to walk in and make a fool out of everyone on that dais and say,
yeah, you do have
money on mental health now.
Yeah,
like,
and you do have it.
Part of that dais.
Right.
This was like from a statement that I watched this meeting I was at work and like had it on in the background while I was working on stuff, and I just like feeling my blood pressure rise throughout the whole thing.
Yep.
And when she started commenting on this, I was like, oh wait, what I thought was her comments sound way too put together for this for Sue. So I like clicked over to the screen. She was straight up reading it. She didn't look up, and she was just reading a speech that I suspect someone had written for her.
Correct. Likely her chief of staff.
Amazing performance, Sue.
I want to take just a minute to point out that as we went over earlier in the episode, Shannon has one of the world's most emotionally distressing and taxing jobs. And then while she's doing that emotionally stressful and taxing job, she's watching county soup meetings in the background.
Yeah.
Like, what is status. Stop doing that. You like
especially because they
do something nice for yourself
on Tuesday,
for
which is just terrible. Like
yeah, well, I gotta stay informed.
And Sue talking about like, better save that homelessness. How many times has Sue fought to just make the lives of people experiencing homelessness worth?
She don't give a fuck.
Adding $5 million a year to park rangers to terrorize people on the American River Parkway. Adding or voting against the eviction moratorium at the beginning of all the COVID madness. Like she does not care at all about homeless people.
Dude, she's
totally
MAGA.
agree.
She's full on MAGA. Like her politics and the way that she does shit is like she's like in the MAGA district, right? That's why she's on the board. Like
MAGA is a cult of death.
Have you read any of this is how So I also did this because apparently, as Skylar is pointing out, I love personal suffering. I decided to read
Catholic.
the comments in on her Facebook page, like her response to this whole thing.
Yes.
And how many of her constituents are just like, Sue, you're the best. Like,
thank you.
You are amazing. This is why I voted for you. I'm gonna be like, I'm pretty sure nobody ran against her. Like, you voted for her because you had to. Like, you could have written in a fly, and the fly would have done better. I don't like that I used a fly for an example because of the whole. She did have
she had an opponent, but the opponent like jumped in at the last minute and didn't really have an organized campaign, which is not the way you beat an incumbent. So I get that people get fired up, but y'all like.
I tried my best. Okay, guys.
Yeah.
And it didn't win, but really don't rub it. I'm right here.
This is the same woman who at the beginning of the pandemic was like, I don't understand why schools can't just be open.
Right.
Like, we go to Lowe's and that's basically like going to school. What?
Yeah, I mean, somebody should
not like going to school.
Yeah, somebody should compile the list of Sue Frost doozies, because that list is pretty much every time she speaks. And is and I was gonna say, and is not reading words prepared for her, but even then, it's every time she speaks.
It's incredible.
You know, I called her out on that vapid, you know, but what about? And so she actually responded. And so I was like, you know, I'm going to take your unforced error of throwing out these issues that you supposedly care about, and I'm going to either force you to do something about it, or I'm going to then be able to like call you as a hypocrite for just being a liar because you said it on the record. And Phil Cerner already pledged his support. He was like, well, I mean, just for the record, I would support those. So, so do you. So, you know, Sue, you're only one vote away. So I'm just like, you know, let's get this show on the road. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that conversation. You know, we have a meeting set up.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't wait to hear more about this.
When?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah. So we have a meeting coming up in about a week. So I'll report back. We'll see how that goes.
Please do.
Some folks joining that meeting so we can say what are the exact, you know, commitments that are happening here, and what's the timeline, and when are these resolutions going to be before the board, because apparently you are our new champion, and you know they say no permanent friends and no permanent enemies, so I'm assuming you've crossed over to the right side of the force, and so we welcome you.
You know, Donald Trump says he's the least racist person I'll ever meet, and we might have found the second.
Yeah,
for sure.
Right here in Sacramento.
Yeah.
I mean, and, you know, and Kian Bliss and Kula Koenig did a really great job of just kind of giving her an education in their public comments of just like what racism actually is. Because I do think that for a lot of people, they've been taught racism is bad, but nobody actually ever gave them a clear definition. You know, those words, I can't be the only person who has words where you're like, I think I know what that means because I've heard it a lot, but I've never actually looked it up to know what the exact definition is. And I feel like racism is like that for most people, that they know it's bad and they have a vague idea of when something might be racist, but the idea that it has to do with systems and perpetuating inequity and all of those kinds of things, like most people just don't know. So her idea of racism is if you declare this as a public health crisis, you're saying that individual people did something wrong and we must take action against them. And I'm like, no, it's all the policies you pass on this dais that are part of the problem, right? Like I'm not going in to regulate people's hearts and minds. What I'm going in is saying you don't get to, whatever messed up stuff is in your heart and mind, it doesn't then get to impact people's lived experiences. And so that's where we start. And then hopefully over time, when we do that right, your hearts and minds may change too, but that it's not predicated on that.
I love your good faith.
Oh, I mean,
I worry that it will get you about as far as it got you with Sheriff Jones.
I do think that,
you know, this is purely about being able to say, like, don't throw these things out there as just like and have no action behind them. I'm like, oh, you want to do this? Let's do it. I don't have any confidence at all that Sue Frost is really interested in moving this forward. I mean, come on, I'm expecting her to stonewall us, you know, the whole way. The point though is to have to make her do that because she offered it. Nobody told her to give her but what abouts. She could have just said, I don't think America's racist and I'm voting against this and shut up. But she gave herself this, I care about these other 4 issues. So, all right.
Good. I mean, we'll build a case against her then because I'm down for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I'm not a sweet summer child.
Not like me.
Before we move on from this, I would like to, because Dave forwarded me a couple of these columns by a friend of the show, Marcos Breton, about this. And we have spent a fair amount of time in the last couple of months being pretty critical of Marcos. I mean, rightly so, because his takes about Measure A were fucking whack as shit. But like I like to be fair in my criticism and my critique of our local talking heads, of which I consider Marcos to be one. He did great with this stuff. I mean, he wrote a couple of columns that are like pretty fucking right on point. He nailed it. For 2 of these in a row. Printed a bunch of mail that they got, and then printed his responses to him, and it's pretty goddamn cool. So fucking hats off, Marcos. You
good for him.
Yeah, and
a bunch of mail from a bunch of racists.
Go look them up. They're cool. It's cool to read. If you aren't familiar with Marcos, he is somebody who interprets local issues, news. He sort of puts it through his own filter, and he does a lot of opining about how he thinks about it.
He's an opinion columnist with the B. Yeah,
it's my understanding that he's not the only game in town as far as groups of people who might be consolidating all of these stories and then opining about them in a way that is meant to educate you and help you interpret the course of these events. Dave, do you know of an alternative to someone like a Marcos Breton that our listeners might be able to dial up and go find?
It's funny you ask that. Yeah. You know, I look at a guy like him and he has takes that are sometimes very good and they sometimes surprise me. He has colleagues that have regularly very bad takes. And so I think a lot of us are out there searching for you know, that shining pillar.
Well, I've heard tell that, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard tell that such a thing exists as a perfect take, a flawless take.
I think that not only does a perfect take exist, but in an entire
oh god, here we go.
Aggregation.
Right.
Oh, aggregate. Okay, I thought you were gonna make up a word. You know, like it's like a flock of geese, or like I thought you were gonna like make up a word.
A gazerax.
Gazerax.
I was just gonna say that, like, you know, it's like in art. It's you know, once there are some folks who are just like collectors of perfect takes,
right?
And you know, throughout the world, we sort of begin to find that all of them come together. You know, so this is sort of, in my opinion, the Louvre of perfect takes.
My God.
The Louvre of perfect takes. I like that. Where is this legendary location?
It exists not just in all of us, but a little bit more concretely in a place on the internet called voicesrivercity.com.
Incredible.
You know, we've been around for a little over 3 years, a lot of amazing stuff there. The current iteration, of course, being When There Are Elections, the Follows the Money Project, but mostly this podcast. We are 110 episodes in. It's been over a year now. We can say over a year since Skylar and I started it back up, which is kind of fun. And I think the 4 of us have just done really fun stuff here, in that like we've all added our own flavor, and I couldn't be more proud of everyone here. So going into this Thanksgiving holiday, I'm just very thankful for all three of you, and the fact that we've all been able to do this journey together. And I've just very much enjoyed absorbing all of your perfect takes week in and week out. We're on social media. Well, first of all, you can find us on every podcast platform. You can watch us on YouTube, Voices River City on YouTube. That's starting to blow up, which is kind of cool. We must be pretty attractive.
It's because my hair looks really cool.
Your hair's looking good. Mine's getting long.
Wow.
I think my androgyny look is kind of going for me. Like everyone's looking pretty nice these days on the show. Flo, I mean, you're always messing with your hair, but it's perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect hair, perfect takes.
That's what this show's about. Yes.
Yeah.
And we don't need a gallbladder. Like
Fuck them.
Yeah.
You don't need that shit.
So no, I'm just super happy with just everything we've done. We are on Facebook, Voices River City. We are on Twitter at Voices River City, Instagram at Voices River City. Skylar runs that. It's always hilarious. You might see some pictures of, I don't know, our mayor as the crow, maybe. Go check it out.
Incredible.
Yeah. That was a listener who created that, and it was just out of this world. And then, of course, you can support us on Patreon. So patreon.com/Voices River City. Starting next month, we are going the classic socialist Patreon model. One free episode a week, one for patrons. The one for patrons, if you're already a patron, don't change a thing. You can already get access to us. So you're good to go. If you are not yet, you can get our patron episodes for as low as $5 a month. That is
nothing.
It's a beer at the bar that literally none of us can go to right now.
It's $1.25 an episode. That's nothing.
Yeah. Or $1 an episode, depending on the month.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Who heard that though? Yeah.
So, but no, everyone who's supported us, we are so thankful. And really the model we're working out is like, I'm really excited about it. It's very, I don't know what you'd call it, anarchist, communist, but I'm really glad with the direction we're going with it. And we need all of you to help it grow. So just thank you so much for every one of you. And
real quick, can I interject and say that like some people, especially right now in COVID and layoffs and all of that, like some people just literally do not have $5 a month to throw at something like a podcast, which is fine. If you like the work we're doing and want to support us, but you don't have the money to do it, a great way to do it is to go on like Apple Podcasts and rate and review us, like throw us a cool review. We appreciate that too. I actually do go through those. And one time I actually have before gotten choked up while I was reading our apple.com reviews because
they're special.
There was a couple of them that were really, really nice. So anyway, that's it. That's all I want to say.
Same. I felt the same way going through those. And I'm always a little astounded by how many people are listening and how quickly this is growing. So we must be doing something right. So no, I mean, I love my co-hosts and I'm thankful for all of our listeners. And I am on Twitter at Kempa, YOUKNOWKEMPA.
You can find me at Guillotine for You. That's Guillotine, the number 4, YOU.
I'm Shan, N.D. Stevens.
And I am Flojaune, FLOJAUNE.
All right. If that's like, I mean, we just listed off a whole bunch of reasons to like get into Voices River City and join the community. In case you forgot, since we started the episode, the other perk now is that Flo might get you laid. So
yeah,
maybe be thinking about that.
Totally forgot. Flo's trying to get people humped.
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I think we didn't mention this yet, but there will not be a Friday episode because we normally tape these on Thursdays, and Thursday is Thanksgiving. So we're all going to take the night off to be thankful. But we will see you next Tuesday, most definitely.
And just also, so you know, we are unlocking a previously locked episode on the day that we usually release the Friday episode. So we're going to unlock the episode where I talk about all the commie bastard Americans that went out to fight the fascists in the Spanish Civil War. And we had a lot of fun doing that one. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hell yeah. That's just one more reason for you to be thankful this Thursday. So, but yeah, we will see you live again on a week from today. Until then, we want you to know that we love and appreciate every one of you, and we want you to stay safe.
Stay sane.
Stay healthy.
And please just like stay away from like literally everyone.
Everyone.
Right, it's getting really
Everyone.
bad.
Yeah.
Just stay at home.
Stay out of the damn airport.
Okay.
Oh my God, please stay with